This episode of Out of the Dark is brought to our sponsors, Pinnacle Bank, the way banking should be. I'm your host, Niles Bankhouser, and today I've got a very special guest. Veronica, would you like to tell the people who you are?
I'd be happy to. I'm Veronica Aguilera. I'm the owner and CEO of Wise Women Prosper. Essentially, I'm a wealth advisor focused primarily on women and their retirement dreams and goals.
Wonderful. And you and I have known each other for a few years now. I think we actually met on LinkedIn.
We met on LinkedIn during that awful
The thing
pandemic
we won't
time.
mention,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And we said, to heck with it. We're going to a coffee shop and we're going to
Yeah.
meet in person.
And then it turned out that we're in a networking group as well. Different chapters. But
Different chapters, but now the same chapter. Yes.
So I did want to touch on something that we talked about briefly over lunch, in talking about children. So
Mhm.
kind of, I guess, the opposite end of the spectrum
Yeah.
here. I run a Facebook group locally. We get questions every week, and someone asked, and this was in regard to the Power School breach that happened, and I'll share some details with you on that are kind of surprising. But the question was, how do we protect our children from these types of cyber attacks? And the biggest part of that really is the credit score of these children and their financial stuff. So what do you think about that?
So you scared me when you brought it up, because I was thinking about when my kids were born and they got a social security number
Mhm.
like right away. So they're 3 days old with a social security number. And I guess we don't look at that again until they're 18, 19, 20, and they want to buy a car or get a credit card. And then you realize that that social security number has been fraudulently used for the past 18 years. And what do? I hadn't even thought about something so awful,
Mhm.
but I guess it could happen, right? If people aren't checking that social security number, that's a great one for the thieves to go after, right? That's got to be
Yep.
one of the ones that you want the most, because nobody's going to check on it.
Absolutely. Exactly. And that's what we see is there's a lot of fraud around that. So their data gets breached, and then they go open up credit cards and go, buy whatever toys they want with those. And they don't care what happens to the credit score of that individual.
So I think, having talked to you about that, I think one of the ways is to be aware of it, because sometimes we won't know about it till after it's happened, but doing those credit checks on your kids' numbers,
Mhm.
having one of those credit monitoring, I assume we can put our kids' numbers on there too.
We should
And
be able to. I
yeah,
hope so,
and
yeah.
then have those be monitored. That's just one of the, again, when we made things simple, we created a way for people, bad actors, to come in and exploit that. So we
Yeah.
need to be ahead of that.
Yeah. And I did, like I said, I wanted to come back to the Power School breach in particular. So I think most people and parents are aware of Power School, but it's
Yeah.
a system that a lot of schools across the country, and I think maybe even other countries, use for just running their school, having the student records, address, name, all the stuff they collect on the school paperwork. Well, some schools included things like social security numbers, dates of birth, really sensitive
see.
information.
Wow.
And get this, the cyber criminal got a hold of an administrator's password, just a password. They were able to get in and export a bunch of data from many schools all over the country.
So from the top of Power School.
Yeah.
So did that mean that only a password was needed to get in? There wasn't like a second layer
Exactly.
authentication, like it goes to their cell phone?
Yep.
That's not right.
Yeah. So they had a cybersecurity firm, CrowdStrike, which is a big national brand. They did the investigation, and then I think there was some leaked information is what happened, but it came to light that no multi-factor was required. And that's one of the most basic things. If you listen to any cybersecurity advice for people, that's like one of the first things we'll tell you. Enable multi-factor.
So in my world, every financial piece of software I use has multi-factor authentication
Mhm.
built in. And then every 90 days, some of them every 60 days, I have to change my password, and my password has to be robust. It has to be, I don't know, like a minimum of 12 characters,
Yeah.
maybe longer. And
Do
I
they still
can't,
require like a symbol and number and stuff?
yes, and I can't repeat numbers, and I
Yeah.
can't use 1, 2, 3, 4. And
So check this out, and this might make you a little mad because it makes me mad. The latest research says all of that nonsense, adding symbols and numbers and complexity, actually doesn't help that much.
it doesn't.
The most important thing is length.
Oh, as
So
long as it is.
so making it
Okay.
longer helps, but requiring people to do all that stuff actually causes us to make the passwords more predictable. Because if my
Oh,
password is password 1 and you're like, no, you need to add more complexity, what am I going to put?
2.
Yeah, or
Or-
password 1 exclamation.
Yeah,
Right. We
right.
all do that. We're creatures of habit.
Well, you know what I do is, you know how it suggests passwords?
Yeah.
I just do that.
And that's the best thing, because
Yeah,
then it's
that's
going to
what I
be
do.
super complex
Yes.
and
It
you
makes
store
no
it in a
sense
safe
at all.
place.
It doesn't make any sense. I use that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how I
that
do
helps
it.
a ton.
Yeah.
But yeah, if well, and what irks me about the complexity not actually helping all that much is that's where I see some of these companies lagging behind, is that they're still requiring some of these archaic things. For instance, changing your password every 90 days. That is more likely to make you create a less secure password because of the same thing.
I'll
If
just change it by one
change a number,
character.
yeah, just change a number, change one character, add an exclamation. So I guess my question for you is how do you feel about trying to keep up with all these changes and this new information?
So I'm in two minds about it because I see how important it is to protect my customers' data. So on the one hand, I'm happy about that, but on the other hand, I'm the one that you see at our desk, like, ugh, I don't have any more passwords in me. What are you making me do? I can't figure it out. I do have. What do you mean I used this one before? I don't remember using it before.
Yep.
So I'm
Yep.
that person. Yeah. That
Well,
gets,
and I think that's the point, is like you're seeing the frustration that these things are causing.
yes.
Um,
So
but we also know it's important. So
So
where's the balance?
I think that's why we see people taking shortcuts and not requiring the extra authentication, because that extra 2-3 seconds, which is crazy when you think about it, that's what gets us so upset.
Mhm.
But that extra 2 or 3 seconds is not worth it to us. So we're not going to put in 2-factor authentication because it just annoys us.
Yeah.
And we're cutting off our noses to spite our faces because we're creating an environment where it's easier to take advantage of us then.
Yeah. And that's a good point, is that maybe we're a little fatigued with all the security. I talk about it all the time. We need to get, as a society, we need to get good at the basics of cyber hygiene. But when we have all these requirements putting a burden on our mental capacity, all these things we have to remember, it makes it hard.
It does. And let's face it, we don't remember all of our passwords, do we? So we're storing them somewhere.
Yep.
So now that storage is potentially in play if it's not secure.
Yeah, and there's pros and cons. Thankfully, at least as of today, a password manager is the best place to store those.
Sure.
As long as you pick a reputable company, that whole program was built from the ground up, thinking about security.
Right.
Now, I will say this: don't save your passwords in your browser. So if Google Chrome says, "Hey, do you want to save your password?" Don't do that.
Okay.
Go get a dedicated password
manager. Yeah, I have one. I can't remember what it's called now, but I do have one.
Yeah, there's lots out there. There's 1Password, Keeper, Dashlane,
Keeper, I think
and
that's
more.
one I have.
Yeah. Lots of them are very reputable, and just using them is slightly different from one to the next.
And you know what? I think there's this tendency to think that certain things are good and they might not be. For example, I've heard you talk about VPNs. I thought if I had a VPN, I'm golden. Nobody, could get in. And I think the VPN companies, I'm sure they're not the only one, sell their product on the basis that people think that if I have their product, I'm that much safer. And that's not necessarily true. I only got a VPN because I wanted to watch TV shows from another country. And and I wanted to pretend I was in that country.
Yep.
And
They're
even
perfect for that.
yeah, well, they were.
Well, they were.
And then the other country got wind of it too. So, but I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, I use a VPN, so I'm fine." I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Is that true, Niles?
Well, no, you're spot on. It's not true. The marketing for these VPNs, they say a lot of things that are true as far as the technology. They're like, oh, it encrypts all your network traffic.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
But they lie about the result. The result they say is, oh, now you're secure.
Yeah.
Well, everything you do on the internet nowadays, or 99% of everything you do on the internet, is already encrypted. That's what they don't tell you. You don't need a VPN for that.
Oh.
So the marketing people got their hands on it, and there's a lot of misinformation. VPNs in particular, because they spend a lot of money on advertising.
Sure.
A lot of misinformation out there about what a VPN actually does. And then to add to it, your employer might say you have to use this VPN for security. But it's a completely different type of VPN than the ones you see So there's all these layers of complex, like just misinformation and confusion added to it.
So I think there's a tendency to think that I'm more secure with a VPN, and that's not necessarily true.
The consumer VPNs that you see advertised to individuals basically do nothing for your security.
I see.
I don't want to say they do absolutely nothing. There's some small benefits, but basically nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's just it. So people like me, we don't always know. We don't have your knowledge. We don't even know what we don't know. And so we can fall prey to those advertisers of these products thinking, oh, I'm golden. And then what a shock. How did somebody get into my computer?
Right.
Well, here's another thing. How many times have you been, I use Facebook for my business a lot, and somebody will say, I've been hacked. Don't accept a friend request from me. And I want to say, you weren't hacked. You were cloned.
Yep.
There's a big difference. Somebody just took your picture and created another profile. You weren't hacked at all. So sometimes we're not even using the right terminology to describe what happened to us.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me of an email that was sent out by Apple probably 2-3 months ago. And it was an email they sent out that said something like, hey, make sure you know how to change your password in case you ever need to. It was just like a helpful, hey, make sure you know these things about your account. Next thing on Facebook, that day or the next day, people were like, oh, don't click on this. It's a scam. It's a phishing email.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
Well, so I looked into it and I started, spreading some information about it. It was not a phishing email. It was a
legit.
real email from Apple. And so it's like, how do we make sure everyone knows the right things to look for, the right things to be aware of?
So we don't even know what's real and what's not.
And it's and AI, going back to that, it's adding to it. It's making it even more difficult.
I can imagine. AI is a tool and it's moving so fast. We can't even get our arms around it before it's doing something else. It's made some other leap.
Oh, every day virtually. It's like leaps and bounds. Yeah.
But getting back to what you said, like using AI in my business, I do use it. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm not a copywriter. I'm not an editor. I need to write my stuff and have it looked at to make sure it's grammatically correct. And AI is really good at that.
Yeah. It's definitely true. The people who say if you're not using AI, you're going to be left behind. I think that's true.
I do too.
You don't have to use it for everything. But what I tell people, I was talking to my daughter the other day, don't think of it as a tool to do the work for you. Think of it as a classmate, as a coworker that, maybe they have this coworker has more knowledge than me. Let me ask it questions and treat it more as a collaborator than.
That's smart.
Yeah. And I've taken that approach where it's like, I'm doing the work, but hey, help me with it.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because it's not me, but I definitely don't want it to. You can tell when somebody's just let AI do the work.
Yeah. Write me an article. It's
I can tell. I can absolutely tell. Yeah.
So we definitely touched on this question I had written down is why are the basics of cybersecurity so difficult? We kind of talked about the fatigue.
I think
that we're all experiencing. Being kind of the end user and a business owner, what do you think is the solution to get us to kind of slow down, get back to basics, and take it seriously?
It's really hard, isn't it? Because it's almost like what we complain about with our kids. They think it never happened to them. And
Right,
I think that
right.
I think that that is a lot of it. Oh, that this is something that happens to other people. I'm not sure. And the thing of it is, Niles, when somebody does have a breach, and unless it's leaked, like with your company you were talking about with Power School, people are not advertising the fact, are they, that they're getting breached? And they're only telling who they have to tell.
Right.
So maybe we don't know how widespread it really is and what a problem it really is. So, like your podcast name is Out of the Dark. Yeah, we've got to come out of the woodwork, but we're ashamed to. And I'm not counting me. I have not had a breach and hope I never
Yeah.
do. But I think when people do have a breach, they're not apt to say anything about it because they don't want it publicized.
Well, yeah, people are always so scared of their stakeholders and investors and whoever may be their clients. They don't want to look bad, but we've got to talk about what lessons have we learned. Hey, yes, I went through it. Any of us could go through it.
Right.
None of us are immune. So you don't have to have pride to be like, oh, I haven't had a breach. Look at me.
And
So
yeah, and I used to work with a lot of physician offices in a former life, and there are so many people in the back working on so many different things. And I think for a long time, we were concerned about employee embezzlement, like something actually happening in the office.
mhm.
So now we have another layer of cybersecurity technology that we need to be aware of. And I think business owners are just overwhelmed. I think what they need, Niles, is somebody like you to really simplify it, like 10 steps you can take right now to improve your cybersecurity. And just following those steps will enable them to say, I never thought of this. I never thought of
Mhm.
this. And then they could come and get more. Because let's face it, not every company needs the same cybersecurity
Oh yeah.
operation. Everyone is different. So I think if they could see that there's a top 10 list, but if they don't think it matters, they're not going to take action on it. And a lot of,
And unfortunately, I'm seeing that a lot.
yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, it seems like you hear people say, "Oh yeah, my password is under my keyboard." Ha ha ha. Like, no, that's serious. Like, stop it.
Right.
let's take this seriously just a little bit. Let's start there at least.
Right.
But it's hard.
Because you have to watch for the people in the office and you have to watch for the people who are at the end of the broadband,
Mhm.
right? It's there's a lot to do in that back office. That's just to protect what you've got, and that's before you even do any work.
Yeah. Do you see a light at the end of this tunnel where things might get easier for security? And again, as a business owner, do you think has anything come across your desk where it seems like it's getting easier?
As far as enabling security,
Yeah, being able to keep your stuff safe, but not so fatiguing.
no, in my world, I just have to follow the protocol
Yeah.
and do what I'm told. And as far as keeping things secure, and I believe enough in it that I'm prepared to do that because
Thank goodness.
I cannot afford my reputation to take a hit
Yeah.
because somebody found out Veronica didn't upgrade her browser to the latest operating system. And because of that, now everybody knows my social security number and how much money I have in my account. It's just not worth it for me
Yeah.
to take that shortcut. I cannot afford to do that.
Mhm.
I don't have anybody to take the fall for me.
Right,
Right?
exactly. Yeah.
If something like that does happen, they'll know it's me.
And perhaps that's kind of the point, is that you realize the stakes are high.
They're very high.
Do you think people in general realize how high the stakes are for them individually?
I think some do, but not enough of them. I think a lot of folks are, if it happens, they're surprised, they're scared. How did this happen? I hesitate to say what the mood is of the whole community. I see a lot in the paper about, I think people are very scam aware. I think our problem is we don't know which communication is the scam and which is not, just like your Apple email
Yeah.
example showed. We're aware, but we don't know what's good and what's bad. We
Mhm.
don't. It's hard to tell.
The most important thing that I could say that out of that is education, and all of us can play a part. Making sure if we are educating ourselves, then let's share that knowledge.
I
Let's spread
agree.
it to everyone we know. When something comes up, let's teach each other.
We do, and that means we have to be vulnerable and share when something went wrong too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't clam up. Share that story. Let people know how it happened so they can avoid it, and what you learned out of it.
Right. And when something goes well for you, you need to share that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah.
So I think that just about wraps it up. Thank you so much, Veronica. This has
Oh,
been a wonderful pleasure having you on.
it's been I feel honored that you asked me. So thank you so much. I love what you do. I remember when you spoke to my women's group
Mhm.
and the room was full, and we were just astounded by some of the things that you taught us in a scary way. But what I loved was that you had actionable items that you can take on every single one of them to protect ourselves. So that was really helpful.
Yeah. And do you have any last minute words of wisdom for everyone?
Make sure that your computer is up to date. Do the updates on your computer. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
think that's one of the, and also, like I said, technology is a tool. It's not a replacement, but it's not a replacement for building relationships. But when it comes to the security, get good, knowledgeable advice from a subject matter expert like you, because you're on
Oh, well,
top of
thank
this
you.
every day. I'm not. So I would say seek out quality advice. So I'm so glad that you are doing that in our community. It's so important.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is another episode of Out of the Dark. I'm your host, Niles Bankhouser, and we'll see you next time.